Okay, so in today's video, we are answering an important question. This is the most commonly asked question I have ever got regarding Amazon FBA since the beginning of my channel a couple years ago. This question has been asked on every single live stream, a ton of Instagram DMs, in the Facebook group, in the comments of pretty much every video. So today we're talking about how much money does it really take to get started on Amazon FBA? And just one really important thing before I get into the content of today's video, and that is to smash the like button. Shout out to Graham Stephan. No, that is not it, but you should do that. It does help feed the algorithm, leave comments and all of that. But the one very important thing that I need to say before getting into this in today's video is that I messed up in my last video. My last video was four problems, things that are worse about Amazon than people think. And I talked about the fact that it takes money to start, that being the topic of today's video. But that video happened to actually get pushed out of my audience a bit for the first time in a while. So meaning I got new viewers on my channel. And what I didn't say in that video was that I'm specifically talking about the Amazon model of building your own brand, private label, launching your own products. That's the main thing that I'm talking about on this channel. There are other business models that use Amazon FBA that are different, and they might be reselling. They might require less startup capital. But what I'm talking about in that video, in this video, and pretty much always on my channel, unless I say otherwise, is the concept of creating your own products, creating your own brand, selling your own thing on Amazon, not reselling, not wholesaling. Those are separate business models where they're separate things. So just want to clear that up. Okay, so how much does it cost to get started on Amazon FBA with private label, with building your own brand? Okay, I said it. So I'm gonna talk about this both broadly and then getting into some specifics as well, but I really need to paint the whole picture to make sense of it. But if you're just really wanting a super quick answer to this question, the range I usually typically give people is $5,000 to $10,000 or so to get started. But that really depends on a lot of things, and I guarantee if you watch through this video, you're gonna pick up something that you haven't thought about yet. So definitely continue watching and pick up these little nuanced points, because it's going to vary for every situation. So the absolute biggest piece by far of your startup costs are your initial batch of inventory, the products that you're actually ordering from your supplier, the 500 units, the 1,000 units of your inventory. That is the main cost. As I mentioned in that video about the downsides of this model, you have to buy inventory. You're not doing some sort of arbitrage drop shipping thing. You are investing in your inventory. You take ownership of that inventory before you start selling. So that is the biggest initial startup cost. So the way that I answer how much your startup, specifically your inventory, is going to cost has changed as I've dealt with hundreds and hundreds of students, so many people, through DMs, through messages, in the group, stuff like that. I've really kind of refined my answer on this. And I could tell you, $4,000 to $6,000 and then having some on the back burner for future orders. And that's valid. But the thing that I've really realized more than ever is that people are using these numbers and stuff as an excuse to just not actually start doing their own product research, which is 99% of the work that you ever have to do on Amazon is finding a great product. And rather than just starting to do that, they just want to find the answers of exactly how much they're going to need for their product. But I don't know what their product is. They don't know what their product is. They don't know how much their product costs. They don't know how many of their product they need. So the absolute biggest thing you can actually do for yourself is just start the process anyways. Realize the rough range that you might need to invest into this, but then start looking for your products. And when you find some products that you're thinking are a great opportunity, start getting those quotes from suppliers. Start seeing how many of this do I really need to have the amount of inventory for, the flow over time to stay in stock and things like that. Because until you know that, you're not going to know what your startup costs are. So don't use it as an excuse. Just start jumping in and then getting quotes. And then, you might find one that costs you $20K to get into, and that might be a reason why you don't do that. It's going to play into the risk reward of each product. Maybe one is a really low investment, but with a pretty good upside, versus another one that costs twice as much to get into for the same amount of upside. That's going to play into which product you're choosing. So if you're there, I do have a product research guide on YouTube for free. It is super in depth. So I'll be sure to link that up. Definitely watch that after this video, because that is where you should start. That is 99% of it's the most important thing when it comes to succeeding on Amazon. Okay, so actually get those quotes, and then you're gonna know for the opportunity that you think is the best, how much your initial startup inventory is going to cost you. It's probably going to be, 2,000 or 3,000 on the low end to 6,000 or 8,000 on the high end. And I should also note, this is going to tie into a later thing that I want to bring up, which is cash flow, that you don't need to pay for 100% of your inventory at one time. So, there's going to be some costs that come up immediately, some that come up later. For inventory though, you can pay typically 30% upfront to start the order, and then the balance 70% when the order's actually ready to ship. And that brings up a crucial point that you literally cannot overlook, which is your shipping costs from your manufacturer into Amazon. That can be expensive. But the way that I look at it, and the way that you should look at it, is think of that as part of your product cost. So if your product costs you $2 in China, but it costs you, this is hypothetical, it costs you $5, it's really heavy, to ship it from China into Amazon, then, think of your product cost as the sum of those two. So 2 plus 5. It's not just you can't ignore that. So make sure you're factoring in that into your initial inventory costs, that there are going to be shipping costs as well. So get those quotes. And I'll note, bonus little tip, it doesn't really matter if it's a smaller, lighter product that has a slightly more expensive but a little cheaper shipping, or if it's a heavier, cheaper product with slightly more shipping. All that matters is what's your all-in cost and how are your profit margins at the end of the day. Now, I'm jumping around a little bit, but I want to note here that let's say you have up to $10,000 to start and your initial inventory cost is only $4,000. Yes, there's going to be other little things that we talk about in this video, other things you need to pay for, but the bulk of it is inventory. Cash flow. You're going to be selling through that first inventory, that first $4,000 or $6,000 of inventory. You're going to have to place another order to restock before you get all of your cash back, most likely. So that is why you have to sort of, look forward in these things and make sure that you do have some money on the back burner, because it's a hard place to be running out of stock, trying to get back in, all of that. So you want to be as prepared as possible. Now, next thing I want to touch on is software, because there's a lot of tools that can help you with Amazon FBA, and a lot of them aren't needed. Some of them I would recommend. So it's going to vary from, say, $0 to $200 of initial costs in software. The one software that I would recommend from the beginning for your product research is Jungle Scout. The extension at the least. I do have a video talking all about that, and including in that video, there's ways you can do it for free. So if you don't have the budget for Jungle Scout, that's fine. You don't need it, but it can really speed up the process. To me, it is worthy because your time is valuable. Now, optional but recommended would be Helium 10. This is a suite of tools, one of my favorites. It has a lot in there. They now sell them separately too, so you don't necessarily have to pay the $100 or so a month to get all of them. You could just, you can pick and choose. It is optional, but it is helpful. There are some keyword tools that are going to help you do research to figure out, what keywords to go for when you get closer to your product launch. That can be useful. And then when you're actually launching, whereas those other ones you might want just in the process of, doing your research and getting started, when you're actually ready to launch, you're going to need something like Feedback Whiz, which is a email follow-up tool, so you can communicate with your buyers. And that's going to start you at only $15 a month, but that's going to be when you're actually selling, so not a cost yet. And by the way, for the tools that I do personally use and recommend, there are some links in the description with some discounts where it's possible. You can, if you do buy through those links, I do get a cut. I'm not pushing it, but there's software that I use and a lot of you need to use anyway. So those are there if you need them. The next expense, I'll touch on this sort of right after talking about the software charges, because in a way, I guess it kind of is, but you're also going to need to pay to upgrade your Amazon seller account to the Pro membership, which is $40 a month, $39.99. So you'll need to do that when it's actually time to sell, but it's really just going to kind of come out of the money that you start making from sales at that time. I guess technically you're probably paying the first one before you made any sales, but it's pretty negligible, but that is a cost that you're gonna have. Now, next up, let's talk about getting your product actually ready in terms of design. So you're going to need a logo for your product. You're going to need a custom box or package of some kind designed for your product. A lot of people do go to Fiverr, 2Rs, Fiverr. That is a website where everything's really cheap. Personally, I've pretty much never used that site. This is not an area I would cheap out extremely. I would budget, a couple $100 or more potentially in this area to get a nice logo that you feel good about, And more importantly, even than the logo, is the entire package that presents your product. And you might be able to use that in the photos and things like that to really get your brand and the positioning of your product across. So it's important. And on the lower but still pretty good end of the spectrum, there's stuff like Upwork. That's like a good starting point. On the higher end, there's these services where you could pay $500 or $1,000 and get like a lot of designers. Or on the very high end, you could go to some renowned packaging artist and probably drop 20 grand on a package, but that's not what we're doing here. Next thing is photography. This is for your images that are going to be displayed on the Amazon listing. This is crucially important because this literally portrays your product to potential buyers. So this is the most important aspect of your Amazon listing when it comes to convincing buyers to buy yours. So what I mean by that is don't cheap out here. Personally, I'll be honest, this is the one I probably have the least grasp on the standard going rates, because I kind of have my own setup for doing this. And I have somebody on my team that can do this. So I don't really know, I don't really use like a package deal for this myself typically, but I have seen some. I just don't like to vouch for things that I haven't personally used. But $500 or so for a set of all of your images, to me doesn't sound that bad, actually. I think you want to do that. Could you set up a whiteboard and take them on your iPhone? Yeah, but I wouldn't probably, if you are a photographer, by all means go ahead, but you're going to want to have some quality photos. Pro tip here is, if your product is like a lifestyle product, something that people use, maybe you pay for 1 or 2 white background photos that you're going to need for Amazon. And maybe for the others, you send them to influencers, or, you give them out to people and you get, in use style photos. Those can on one hand be way better, but they can also be cheaper. So that's a big tip there, which can maybe get your cost down from 500 to maybe only like 100 or 200. Next thing I wanted to include on this list, even though I personally do it for free, and I don't think you should pay someone to do this in most cases, which is copywriting. If you're confused what copywriting is, we are not talking about trademarking or copywriting. We're talking about copywriting, writing copy. That always confused me when I was new to this space too. So don't worry if you're confused by that. But copywriting is the art really of writing in a way that sells. So we're talking about the description, even the title. We're talking about the text that you put into your photos, the bullet points under the price in that area. Any words, even on your box too, any words that are selling your product is copywriting. And you need this whole listing written. For me, I do it myself. And I think copywriting is a really interesting skill. It's something I'm trying to learn a lot more about and dive into deeper. I just think it's really cool. Some people, it might seem like the most impossible thing ever in the world. So you may want to pay somebody, and that's probably not going to be a cheap expense. I could see that being $500 or something like that. But most likely you're not on the side of outsourcing that from the beginning. In which case, I would recommend reading the book Cashvertising. I'll try to remember to leave a link in the description to that. But that was my first book on copywriting, really opened me up to it. The S is a $sign in Cashvertising. So yeah, that's a great place to start with. Okay, next up, maybe the most important on this entire list. I've probably been asked about this part in particular almost as much as I've been asked about the entire thing. So this is, how much should I budget for PPC? If you're new, you don't know yet, PPC is pay per click. This is the advertising platform within Amazon. So you can pay to have your listing show up in the search results. Somebody types in coffee and yours shows up at the top because you're paying to be in that spot, and you pay per click when somebody clicks on your ad. So you want to be utilizing this. This is a big part of my launch strategy. And so the question I always get is, how much should I budget for it? And this one, you may or may not be disappointed, but I think if you really listen to my answer here, you're going to understand. And this one you shouldn't think about as a line item cost on your initial startups. Like for example, for packaging design, you have to pay for that once per product, but you pay for that once and then it's yours. For advertising though, it's going to be money in and money out almost immediately, hopefully, if things are going right. So that's why I don't think about, you need to set aside $2,000 for your PPC, because it doesn't work like that. Hopefully your very first day you might spend $30, but then you make $90 in sales, and then with your profit margin you're already like breaking even. So it's money in, money out immediately. So that's why I don't think of it as a line item expense. because it's money in, money out. I hope that makes sense. But I will say, I would start at low end $30 a day from when you launch. If you are willing to dive in a little bit deeper, or you're going for a more aggressive product, then 50 to $100 a day is a good starting point. And the biggest thing here is you're going to have to adjust this based on what's happening. Look, if you spend $30 and it goes amazingly well, I would try to spend $100 the next day. If that goes amazingly well, I would spend more. Might not scale up that fast. But the point is that you're going to adjust that based on what's happening, because you're actually going to be making sales. So again, money in, money out. And also keep in mind, this same concept that I just talked about there with PPC would also apply to any other marketing efforts that you're doing, whether it's Facebook ads, even influencers. You could really think about it all through that lens, because it's not really a one-time cost. Now, those are really the main things, but hopefully you are left with some money on the back burner for two main reasons. And one I touched on, which is cash flow, reinvesting into more inventory of that product. And the other is more marketing efforts, which you should do because you want to escalate the sales of your product as much as possible. Okay, if you made it through to the end, let me know in the comments if I missed anything, if you have any follow-up questions, but I would love to hear what you think. Please do leave a comment at the very least, just to feed the algorithm. It helps out my channel, hopefully get sent out to more people. Smash the like button too. That stuff does help. There is a free Facebook group in the description. There are links to all the resources that I talked about. There's also a link to Zero to Brand, which is my course. If you just want all of this Amazon stuff, A to Z, holding your hand just in one place to really learn it. Zero to Brand, that's my training program that's available to you if you're ready to go into something like that. And also, sorry for the delay in videos. I know there was a pretty big gap there. I didn't make videos for a few days, then I was out of town, and then right when I got back, my editor was out of town. So it was just this like weird timing. So thank you so much to all of you that have just been really supporting me for almost 2 years now. So I especially acknowledge those of you that have been here from the beginning, but even if you're new here, I really appreciate you just as much, and hopefully you're here for a while. So subscribe and check out my past videos, and stay tuned for the next ones. Peace.